라소 다 얘네 연대 산지군다 냠나야 가린 산지군을 잡은 거로 사비 남미샤라 부차서 네로 꼭과지에 버려 신기로 라소라 다 되는 양아란제 네네 다 제비세 잡혔습니다 네네 나봐 다시 해봐도 나네 라레스미가 두시에 나네 다 되네 프로그램에 장축 센치 라자 되네 당가란 좀 남체지 걸 다 된다네 되네 가장 당가란 좀 가르치에 요래서나 다 얘네 그봐 아 동아라다 얘네 배도 뭐와다 그봐라서 봐 리스키는 체체 보래 다 가장 되네 이슈레스
So, continuing our teachings on the trainings of the heirs of the victorious ones, the practices of a bodhisattva, namely our text, the 37 particular precepts, tenets, practices of a bodhisattva. So, continuing our teachings on those, on the trainings of being a bodhisattva, we're within the section of the trainings of taking various different situations on the path. So our last teaching, we discussed, or was focused on how to take decline onto the path. Namely decline or loss onto the path, and also discussing how to take various different situations of suffering and poverty and decline and loss. How is it that you can take those onto the path, onto your spiritual path? So that's what we discussed in our last meeting, and we'll continue from there.
다 가정하는 쪽에다 도서로부터 가르쳐요. 다 지나는 저 샘직 아니 가르쳐요. 다 가서 숑바다. 얘네 동가로하다. 얘네 때나기 뭐봐. 다 들리가서 장가 생축 차르다. 다 제거했으나 얘네 말아서 뭐대야. 공방대야. 생축대야. 빨. 얘네야 동하르듯어도 얘야. 되는 가서 직인도라고 줄이야. 얘네 양 알아서 그때서 가래이나요. 다 대단계지 소소급에는 얘네 대자오지 야 조르체제. 대대스제는 남이 쳐야지 시에요. 맞아. 다 되는 게 되네요. 얘네 도초래. 얘네 도초에 가려서 조르하세요. 다 가장 게 얘네 다 그걸 왔다. 이게 도초. 다 조르하세요. 대야 레오도 가서 가르쳐 버렸어요. 야 선대야. 내내 쇼체다. 다 맞지라다. 얘네 다 지금가랑 저배 되는 지금에 가서 선다 되는 지가 얘네 레스지들의 선대야 야르데 버체. 얘네 다양한 지금에 내가 때 제제니 얘네 다배 얘네 야나 지금가랑 저거 랑랑 통지하기는 얘는 이뷰지하기는 통종지하기는 되네 샘들 처음에 받자니 되네 야 강경만 요즘에 차이는 그래. 근데 이제 야 가르쳐 그러서는 야 대로 차오도 양고 마네지. 야 다가 가장 가서 시에 봐. 강한들 되네 가서 저 주비 샘생인데 가르쳐 보고 그러서는 얘네 빼나 신슈바 없지.
신축파.
뒤에라. 얘를 군지 가득이네. 딱봐 장커대 거라. 대나이 답변에서 센다 저거 막 쇼미도 값어. 대 값어. 야 야를 빨지니 장에 되고. 양 다다 가는 저거야. 다다 가서 배드께서 센데야. 대 매바시 차르도 값어. 야 아니 조라다 근데 그 톤이 양지 샘대야 킹바지 제용도 값은 양 대담지 고서 마스 잡기니 강다 되는 거죠 둘딱 되는 지과제네다 남도 쳇도봐 제공이었다 그런 게 좀 어떤 때나 내 가르에서는 요발라 제레스
So the concise meaning of what we went over last time, how to take decline, loss onto the path. So in brief, when something bad happens to you, when you've been defeated, when you've lost something, when you're impoverished, when you're in a state of decline. So generally when that happens then, suffering comes about, you feel despair, saddened, depressed. So in such situations, these situations of various different types of decline, then you're to re-inspire your mind, uplift your mind, find the mental fortitude in your mind, take those situations and transform them into facilitating the power of your heart, increasing the power of your heart. So that's kind of briefly what we went over last time on how to take situations of decline as the path. So when your mind is defeated, saddened, down, then to uplift yourself, train and do various different things to bring yourself back, find some confidence. So today we'll be discussing the opposite of that. So instead of situations of decline and loss or failure, what to do in situations of prosperity, when everything's going well, when you're gaining, when you're prosperous. So last time we discussed decline, so now discussing prosperity. So when things are going well, when you're gaining, when you're prosperous, the mind can become too elated, too big, and arrogance and pride come out of that. Your mind gets all puffed up. Your mental state is too high. So then in those situations, you need to bring yourself back down. You need to control your mind, press it back down. If you don't, then you get all puffed up with pride. Then you start to see yourself in some very great light, and you treat others terribly. You look down on others, and you begin to do all sorts of different negative various activities, things. So in that situation, when that happens, you need to control your mind, bring it back down. So during our last teaching, we had used the analogy of a conifer, a pine tree, as being analogous to training in bodhicitta. Meaning that a pine tree, a conifer, stays green all year round. The green needles are vividly green in the summer, spring, winter, and fall. No matter what seasons, what the weather's like, they never change based on the external circumstances of the weather. So likewise with training in bodhicitta, we're to train to have a consistent state of bodhicitta, our mind at an even keel at all times with whatever situation befalls us. When something bad happens and our mind is saddened, then bringing our mind back up like the vibrant, shining green of the pine tree needles. So with prosperity, again, to counteract the pride that can come with prosperity by bringing the mind back down, controlling the mind. So all of this focused on whatever situation befalls us to maintain this even keel, this even state of bodhicitta. So today we'll be getting specifically into how to do that in situations of prosperity. So first, the verse itself, the root text. Though famous and prominent, someone to whom others bow, though you amass the riches of the God of wealth. To see that worldly splendor has no essence, and thus to be without arrogance, is the practice of a bodhisattva.
치네 되는 알아서 배드네 완전히 죽고 싶지 장바도 아게라 터봐 얘네 되나이 다 되나이 게나요 나 일통보이 주반성보이 그래봐 앞에 계산을 되네 남바야 보이 되는 짓을 한다고 매당 앞에 지마이 자 장마이 야, 나 대나이 아니 다 가르쳐서 나 앞에 미시바 해봐이 뭐좀 해봐 치모이 나라고 써야매 봐 얘네 나이 앞에 미시바 되네 왕통 치모이 봐 고사 통보요 나가 가르치네 초고요 나 대자고 나 가르치는 초고를 삼한다 나 강단을 빼나 얘네 대자고다 아니, 무덤에 요래서 빼다가 지가서 얘네 퇴바다 남소다. 다 대다수 깨체. 얘네 다 나라는 쪽으로 빼다 맞아르지. 맞아르지 오늘 가서 얘네 다 결함돼요. 다 지 밤에 밤하고 차로 그랬어. 밤에 밤.
Pagyo meba, pak meba. Becoming puffed up, pride, arrogant, prideful. Really, there are all sorts of different causes that can lead to this. One gaining some semblance of fame, one having high status, one having tremendous riches, gaining some renown. All of these can be causes that lead to this. Having high status, thinking of oneself as being quite beautiful, very handsome, beautiful, having this thought, I'm quite gorgeous. There's nobody quite beautiful like me. Or with your education.
Miss World things.
Miss World.
장마스는 Miss World.
You're Miss World. You're Miss Universe. Donald Trump's Miss Universe. No one's as beautiful as I am, sort of thing. Or you're quite expert in your field. You've become very expert, extremely learned. You think that your level of education in whatever given field is unparalleled. You've reached the pinnacle of your education, your field. Or your whatever status you have. You think you have status, some level of power, control over others. That you're able to do anything. You have the power to do anything that you want. All of these various different situations. There's lots and lots of different things that can lead, you're prosperous in some area that lead to thinking of yourself as unique. No one's like me. I have this level of status, respect, abundance, whatever. Coming from maybe from praise from others or veneration from others. So all of these are various different situations, conditions that lead to this state of being puffed up with pride. And once one has a tremendous pride, then their conduct, their behavior becomes completely like unconscientious. It's lacking conscientiousness.
얘네 빼나 얘네 통보이나 통보를 내려나 이게 통보야 그냥 갖다 치워요.
Really, for example, one example, if you reach some very high status, once you're very high, elevated up, then really there's a greater danger of falling.
얘네 죽보이나 yang ngaran soga akordo ini ngaran soga pena ene nyodaya akwar chai so pena ta ngaran soga 정보 뜻은요 꼬마다 작과다 저기 때문에 얘가 요 말았어 아니 저 방고 랑카나 거기서 얘 되면서 그 꼬마들 작게 사찰 되는 거 얘가 싫어요 말았어 초보대나 스스로 맞이나 다다 가는데 괜히 작게 때문에 그래 얘가 이랬어 다다 초보대 다다라도 방고 차야 얘가 전부 이랬어
저는 중요한 이미지가 $1 밀리언 지고 오듯이
If you're rich, you're very wealthy. Really, in particular, if you're quite wealthy, you have a greater problem, greater danger of greater problem. If you're poor, if you have nothing, there's really no danger of you losing it all. Thieves and bandits will leave you alone. There's nothing for them to gain from you. When you're poor, like out here, you can sleep on the street. No worry, nobody's going to bother you. You have nothing for them to come take. But when you're wealthy, right now in this very moment, there's the danger that someone will come try to steal from you, whatever various different ways, steal from you, take from you. That can happen right now. And then in that very moment, there's the danger of losing it all and becoming impoverished.
자, 대탐지 얘네 말한 가래 연장 와서 유지하는 때가 들어. 유지하는 때가 되는데 다들 유라가 취재래. 유라제래. 뭐때 말해. 깨끗이. 그러나다 와서 가장들네 가르쳐야 돼. 남루지 사도. 가장 남루지 사도. 너좀 걸래.
Yeah. So
Colombia.
다 콘소베 되는 말하는 저니 다시 내가 신부들을 넣어 거기 예중에 말해
폴리틱.
다 콘소 되네 게라치 콘소 되네 추고야래도 게라치 뭐래도 다 남들이 리서치는 좋아봐 니 자주 담봐 다 콘소 은행에 콘소 삼모들이 요 말아 다다다는 콘소 하다 찍더니 아니 와서 찍 게라 첨부 투야, 주로와 첨부 투야, 애네 다 거저고 배 직장가 첨부 투야, 지금 레와 통과 먹고 싶지는 로디 계지 지나 상가에 사도 대라버더니 뭐가 내가 매로
All of those situations, and whatever really given situation you may have. Any given situation arises based on causes and conditions. It's contingent upon various causes and conditions. And anything that is based on causes and conditions, by its very nature, is transient, is malleable, can change in a single moment. It's not stable whatsoever. One recent example of this we could see, this recent plane crash in Colombia yesterday. The plane had 80 or so people on it, and of those 80, it had a Premier League Brazilian football team was on the flight. They all died. So all of them, they're quite famous, they're renowned, they're great soccer players, they're probably quite wealthy, and they were flying through the mountains and they crashed and passed away. So of course none of them were thinking of that was going to happen or had gone on that journey to die in that way. They were all probably going off to a match, going to gain, with hopes of gaining a great victory, increasing their fame and their renown, their status, their wealth, their prosperity. That was what they're all thinking of doing, and then in a single moment, the plane crashes. All lost, pointing out just the uncertainty of any given situation.
근데 songa 다 기타는 말하는 조금 내가 가르쳐 이랬어요. 뭔가 저 교로한테 터바로 왔어. 자빠 이나 내가 이래 교로이나 터바로 왔어. 터바. 아주 터바로 왔어. 터바 이나요. 딱 내가 가서 터바 되나? 저를 따고 이거 그래서 내가 쓰고요. 그래봐. 와서 그 뭐만 써놓은 거 따지고 내가 써놓은 게 와서 터바로 왔어. 터바이나 터바대요. 근데 말하는 그 집, 아니, 라저지 아니야 말이야. 그래봐. 밤에 봐지 제리야. 라저 터바이나? 라저나? 써놓은 여바이나? 야보라 봐. 이래, 아무나 때문에 하고 써놓은 사. 와서 기도를 하면 저렇게 나와. 그래서 온 거야. 여바, 여는 여비 가스. 아니, 줘봐. 여는 여기 가서 줘봐 여는 가르쳐 줘 그래. 맞죠? 손좀 싸줘 그래. 얘나 배봐 줘 그래. 라나 배봐, 샘들 배봐 줘 그래. 치마를 배봐 줘 그래. 내가 그때 와서 남자들 와서 뒤 여봐대. 얘네 와서 지. 너무 와서 그 손남기를 배는 준 거야. 아무도 손남 줘야지. 아니 지금 어렸어. 어디서 어디 대담직한다. 이거 보래. 내가 같더니 연은 내가 말해 내 말.
생겨는 거 기도 남게.
같이 그러면 사원을 열어주고. 제 탄이 얼마 되면 잘 쇼칭을 했어요.
So, because of all that, this training now we're talking about bringing prosperity onto the path. Prosperity meaning that which we have gained. That's the prosperity that you have right now, the wealth that you have right now. Whatever your status, your renown, your fame, your wealth, your abundance, whatever it may be right now, that's what we're talking about. So whatever that is that you have, are we to see it as some type of terrible thing, as the enemy? Oh, I have money now. It's terrible. I need to be rid of it. No, not at all. That's not what we're to do. So you recognize that, oh, this prosperity that's come about for me, this gain of prosperity, things going well right now, is the result of my own actions. It's the coming to fruition of karma that's been engaged in previously. It's come about based on my own merit. Because I've amassed merit previously, I now have whatever given prosperity there is right now. So then in having it, of course, you're not to give rise to any sense of pride or arrogance in having it, to be careless or to be careless with it. Instead, to recognize it as being the fruition of your own merit. And it being related to merit, then that's a good thing. Rejoice. Rejoice, and also this prosperity, what I have now, has arisen from merit, and because of that, I now have the opportunity to engage in even greater merit, engage in even more positive action. In the text, in the various different texts of how to take happiness and suffering as the path, Chiduk Lamkir, when discussing prosperity. It says, if I'm prosperous, you're to be happy. If you're prosperous, you can do anything. Or it's, you can act once you have means. So when you're prosperous, when things are going well, then you're free to act in whatever given way you wish. You're free to engage in meritorious actions. You're free to engage in working for the benefit of other beings, altruistic endeavors. You're free to do things that will be a benefit for this life, and likewise you're free to do things that will be a benefit for the lives to come. So then, perceiving it in this way, then you recognize that based on your previously amassed merit, you've had this situation now, and you should take advantage of it to amass more merit for the future. It's not something to be perceived of as an enemy, something to be discarded, thrown away.
이나영 한가라서 대내 도체 한 디급배는 거랑라 맞아다 생관하고 생관지 이나 이 장 가려버렸으나 아 안고 랑이 밤에 맞춰야 옛날 등산 계좌지가 배샤기는 가르치는 총을 했어.
But if you don't act in that way, then if instead your situation, your prosperity brings about pride, arrogance, a complete lack of humility, then various things will happen. First, what happens is you become careless about your own conduct. For example, these days you hear, if you have money, you can do anything. Do whatever you want. If you're rich, if you have money.
ini 그랬다 가르쳐. ini 미카시 드리베. 그랬다 가르쳐. 가르쳐. ini 농가만 칸가만 보이고 농가를 해 칸가. 니 말을 해라 칸가를 해 나는 이해하려. 무슨 뜻이야 하는 거. 이거는 니 말을 해 가지고 대보자. And fail.
Devil makes us young.
Devil makes us young. 이나요? 자, 대라고 했잖아. 야나, 양 가시에 들어도 와. 니 말을 해라, 끼매를 해. 대보자. 자, 밤에 봤을 때 가야지 쓰그래. 한테는 선은 밤에 봐. 밤에 봤을 때 처음에 봐. ini ngarang tu begitu, dia dah cik dia merah apa? Ini, ni macam ni yang kan cuma je nak orang segera, apa? Kerana sana kalau drum aku cakap, kamcom mampu yung kere, mura mampu yung kere. Ini ni macam ni kau nak apa? Sekarang tu ni tu, tu ni, biasanya na, kerana je ni, kadang kita dia siapa? Biasanya na, kerana je tu ni saya. 내가 당나 여만 거야. 장글에 아예 봤었는데 좀 지지. 교육 도와내기는 처음 단. 방송이 지금 말하는 거 드디어 왔어요. 이제 그냥 돈 아예 봤으면 최단 와사요. 처음이야 봐. 이제 게임 처음. 아니 다 다들 봤어도 최연은 처음이야. 아예 제일 많아. 가능성 많은 배셔요. 안에 있는 묘초래. That did was a child.
Some people with their great wealth buy a house in every country, buy a house in every state. Wherever they go, they buy a new house, stay in it for one day, go off to the next house. They're always on the move. Really, that doesn't bring any unique, particular happiness or bliss. Oh, I'm in a new house every day. Good for me. They change their car every day. They buy a new car all the time. Buy a new car and just throw the last one away. But it's not really particularly of any benefit. It doesn't bring about any particular happiness. Maybe some people, they get a new lady friend every day, a male friend every day. They switch, just jump around. So when we talk about being careless, lacking conscientiousness, that's what we're talking about. That's the type of careless behavior that many people engage in. You have money, you can do anything with it. There's no real benefit to that. There's no real measure or decorum to one's behavior then. And acting like that, going about acting completely carelessly, I have money, I have wealth, I can do whatever I want, then often what happens is one day major, dangerous or bad situation can come about. Acting in that way for prolonged periods of time, then you're amassing lots of enemies. You're making all sorts of enemies. You're creating the cause and conditions for conflicts and problems that will then be met with one day. Acting like that then won't pay off. But we do hear this often today, that as long as you have money, you're free to do whatever you want. If you have enough money, you can buy whatever you want, or buy your way out of whatever happened. So when we talk about being conscientious, be careful with one's behavior. This is both from in a worldly context and in a dharmic context. The dharmic context, we're conscientious based on the various disciplines put out in the dharmic context. And in the world, we have worldly context. We have the laws and rules that must be abided by. In particular, having some sense of like a personal sense of like shame or decorum, that often if you have enough money, it leads to completely losing that.
상대는 비선 이마를 내리면 직선 유도선을 너무 통이되와. 옛날에는 말한 쪽에 아니 대도가 코리아 신지
Kimide.
야
Korea. Sinzi Kim.
신지
South Korean? No.
Yeah, South Korean.
Oh, South. Oh, yeah.
코로나 때문에 코리아가 되는 그 신지 토별 너 같이 차인지. 아니야 그런 트렌드 주주다고 보고 봐. 직계나 되는 로 마마 맞이나 뭐 돌 마마서 가서 보이는 건데 얘는 근데 탑시 드라마입니다. 얘는 요아주 드라마에서 다다다 하는 직계는 말하는 것이고 할 매번 보고 어야 다 돼서 답이 아이가 봐 맞이야. 장고 맞이해 봐. 윤세는 때니 소보 톱죠? 아? 뭐 채무 얘기야? 사줘야. 그래서 이게 비토네나 아메 봐. 장고 맞이 봐. 저것은 통되는 거 같아. 산주술 때는 또 망아서 홍중으로 또 없어라고 지. 그래서 참사가 딱 빼셔는 거지. 아빠 요 말에 다음이다 용거래서라고 그래. 됐어 너 때는 무슨 기코서 용거도 와. 됐어 지 빼면은 되는 징하라고. 없어. 되는 거서 뭐 용문에를 봤어.
너죠.
됐어 때는 딱 너번 은이 통거도 왔어.
So acting like this, you gain tremendous prosperity, and you lose all sense of decorum, conscientiousness regarding your conduct, and are puffed up with pride, and bad things happen. So that happens, and we can see this happening. We have many different examples of this on a day-to-day basis that we can see. Just watch the news. Watching the news, you see these exact situations happen. People gaining status, prosperity, and falling from grace based on their own conduct. One example, the Prime Minister, President of South Korea, this woman, who she was elected several years ago, we think, and since then has created a giant mess for herself. One thing she's been trying to come up with a way to extend her time in office. Or now you can't stay longer than 6 years. She's trying to fight that. She's been coming up with different ways to do that, and having she's been coming up with all sorts of different dishonest, like bad, different methods and schemes to maintain her power and to maintain her lavish lifestyle. And all of that has really, it's bringing huge problems for her. She's in not favored right now at all. It's a huge mess. And it's all come about from her being completely careless with her conduct, being deceitful, lying, not being conscientious, not having any sense of decorum, acting all sorts of terrible ways. Now she's met with this huge problem. So it's based on various causes and conditions that she arose to the level that she was at, that she gained that status. And now she's fallen from that status. So, yeah, we have all sorts of examples like that you can find. And the news really sometimes can be quite a good teacher for these types of situations. It can really help us understand this. Some days we may be thinking, oh, I have nothing, I'm poor, nothing's going on, I need to amass some wealth. Just turn on the news and see what that can lead to, too. It's really quite a good teacher sometimes.
가서 제모 년아 직대 돈이 열받아 후손수 반도나 주던 직대 가를 돈 후손 가내지 좋나요 대감지야 휴지 tunje도 좋다 마시 제고래 했어요 저 türkin tunje선 좋았지 tunje선 좋나 야대 열아 얘는 이거 패하고 열어 맞을 뭐지 야대 열아 Yana Patogo, Sana Patogo, Meta Pato. Jikan Tone, Tegare, Manatan Jikan Tone, Jorba Yona, Yanda Yona, Longjo Yona, Toba Yona. He, Majer Chet, Yana, Nipuja Chet, Yana, Radorchet, Madamachi. He didn't run to Yana, Heavy Togo, Tunjian and Roa Chabin, didn't he? Didn't run to Lancher. 이 다다 팽을 엉거야 팽으로 예를 빼내다 나란 쪽으로 빼나 아니 영 다다 빼나 얘는 잘 못성된 다음에 돼서 그러면 또 줘봐요 얘나야 그런 게또 줘봐 무슨 쳐봐 대탐지 가르치도 땅 열에서는 얘네 나주 빼는 짓을 얘네 담비 추 체도 땅지로 사산에 사 야가로 하고 있고요. 좀 가르서 그럼 가래 하고 그래서 지게지다 뭐 돼서 해 통과로 맞죠 내죠 내지 그런 거는 우리에게 되네 담비 추지고 근데 son가 제가 코라는 저 강남 세 담비 강강마 얘네 나랑 좀 빼라 얘네 밑에서 놓았잖아요. 어? 얘네 배드께서는 말한 소리네. 배차죠. 연대로 교체죠. 얘네 농가 얘다니 빼는 자가다. 얘네 찍고래 그 빼는데다 말한 소리 딱 같이 가시면이라고 들으서 같이 좀 가시면 왜?
이제 이사.
가시면 인사를 같이 딱 내려오 빼는 다 몽방하고 얘네 배드께서는 말한 소리 뭐 가서 빼내도 좀 대해줘. 대탐지를 되네 맞죠. 처음 딱 나란 쪽으로 빼듯이 얘네. 얘네 이런 대제도 소탁해. 그렇지 뭐야? 빼는 딱 거든요. 야, 걸럽네. 배로서는 더 딱 빼듯이 나란 쪽 여보 방으로 가.
여보 방.
여보
citizen subject.
배로 야보기 방.
야, 미세 주마. 그래서 탐지죠. 이한테 호주 근데 다 가르치 받긴 되네. 코란 공도 야야. 맞자 뭐 있어 치워지면 연대에서 탐지자. 공도 거. 생계에서 지어지니 근데 다 빼도 저스를 지네. 다 라지 가서지 약 없으나 저는 다 찍대가 있나. 와.
맞습니다.
대저우지로 딱 대저우지요는 근데 고사요는 안조리요는 얘라요는 가세요는 이 얘네 망가 패요. 직대나 패요. 얘네 다다가 봐도. 그러면 다 산지 그때 봐. 얘네 다다 담보는 거 패서 누가 된다고 또 담지. 얘네 여는 다 된다고 지기는 가서 채모여나. 됐어 약관을 넣어. 뒤는 저 지금도 가서 된다고 약관이요. 가서 망고여나 약을.
I was taught in the Bodhicharya Bodhisattva way of life regarding whatever perfect abundance you may attain, whatever prosperity, abundance you have, both in the worldly sense and in the dharmic sense. In the dharmic sense, gaining some level of high stature or enlightened qualities or high education in the dharmic sense, or wealth in a worldly sense. However great that abundance, that perfect prosperity and abundance can become, worldly, dharmic, whatever it may be, you need to transform it to be in harmony with the Dharma, however great it may be. If it's transformed to be in harmony with the Dharma, then that's a quality, then it's a good thing. Whatever qualities you maybe have can be helpful, can be beneficial. As long as those qualities, that prosperity or abundance, doesn't lead to giving rise to a sense of pride, ownership of it, pride, arrogance, lack of humility. However much abundance you have, if it's used for the benefit of others, if you focus that abundance, whatever means you have, to be a benefit for oneself in this life, to benefit oneself for the next life, and for virtuous actions to benefit others, then that's good. Whatever worldly qualities, praise, wealth, abundance you may have, lacking a sense of pride with it, then use it to benefit others. Instead of having worldly qualities and having this sense of pride or arrogance that then leads to degrading others or using whatever prosperity you have to compete with others or keep others down. But instead to take it as the path by making it a harmonious condition for being a benefit. If you act in that way, then whatever prosperity, abundance, perfect abundance you may have is then a benefit for this life and lives to come. And we have examples of this. One perfect example of acting like this is the Dharma King Trisong Detsen, who had tremendous wealth, power, influence, and used it for the sake of the sublime Dharma. Focused all of his influence, power, and wealth for the Dharma, to bring the Dharma to Tibet. Sending the best and brightest of Tibet to India. Taking all the worldly conditions, the worldly abundance that he had, and making it solely a benefit for the Dharma. Recognizing that the worldly things, the worldly entities that he had were of no real lasting benefit, that what was needed for lasting benefit was the sublime Dharma. So he emptied out the treasuries of gold of Tibet and used them to accomplish this. Used them to fund the training of the great Lotsawas, the translators, sending translators all over the place, to India, to Kashmir, to various different places where they trained to give rise to enlightened qualities. They studied the great texts, they gained a great education, studied language.
Inviting the scholars.
And then inviting scholars from
like
all over, from India, Kashmir, like Bimala Mitra, and so forth, the great Panditas, inviting them likewise to Tibet. Bharatana.
Saint. like Berosan.
Tene pene ta Berosan. Chu chibu ma. Tene ta ngara to si me pene di ka so zambu ngi di ka so ka sa me ba ru je ji chung de ta go je cho. 야 뭐라. 네, 좀 됐어. 야 총도 될 거 없어. 그래서 다다이는 계속 가지요 말에 남주요 말에. 이내야 딱 이해가 없을 때는 대자부터 다 싸먹던 된다부터 밑에서 가래서 영이 열어 가래로 지키는 돼요. 다 하는 근데 대자부터 지키 다 가도 직성도 나오고 있고.
Sent people and invited people not just from India, not just from Kashmir, but from all over, from China, all the various areas, not countries then, just various regions around Tibet. Invited masters, sent people to learn there. And not just the Dharma, to study astrology, to study medicine, to learn medicine. The first global medical conference was held in Tibet at that time. Trisong Detsen brought everybody, all great medical practitioners, to Tibet to learn, study medicine, the knowledge of medicine at the time. And at that time, of course, there were no cars, no vehicles, no planes to bring these people. And to come up with all different ways to gather these people together, to be able to bring them together.
Like Berosan?
Yes.
He was although he was a subject of king, right?
Mm-hmm.
So since Berosana was childhood, he sponsored him, sent it to India, learned, master scholar. When he returned back to Tibet, so he was so learned and knowledgeable. He was so learned, so that although Berosana was subject of Trisong, he revered him. You know, that's why, like, he wasn't arrogant or pride. So, although he sent it.
He sent his lowly citizen.
Yeah, but after returning back, he revered him like a teacher. You know, that's why.
내가 자기 모스코를 들어.
Moscow.
근데 모스코를 들어니 내가 뭐 어르스 제로 내가 저야 대도와 이제 내는 거의 나가고 아니 제로 그런
Mama Kongi Portran.
그런 일 나가는 무슨 근데 그런 근데 쓸 국자들이 있어요. 도저히 가는 거 샤모들이 있어요. 근데 계속 돌아와. 얘는 특히는 그런 거 되네. 저가 그냥 같을 때는 문의게 되네. 다 여기다가 jar고 장축서 받았어. 다 대서 그 가르쳐요. 말하죠. 미만 거지. 애매해도 왕 거지. 왕도 여체도서 하루 땅게. 나도 자활 돌고. 다 연락이 결보돼서 미국에서 가서 습들 방거 꼭 야사돼서 세고 좀 샤모한테서도 돌게 빠는 데고 제도 다 빼는 빼 민자 이제 통송.
So some time ago, Rinpoche was in Moscow. He visited a museum of the Russian king, the Russian emperor. And we think it was probably the king's old palace. Anyway, there was a golden throne, like a solid golden throne. The king's hat, the king's crown was a diamond encrusted, like a diamond crown. Rinpoche saw this and kind of got back to the great Dharma kings of Tibet, the Bodhisattva kings of Tibet. For them, really, everything they did was for the populace. Everything that they had was spent on behalf of the populace and was for the benefit of the people and also for the benefit of the future generation. Everything they did was focused on that. So to see this in Russia, where It's like the opposite. To take from the populace and give yourself your a golden throne and a diamond crown. Quite different.
얘네 다 양말은 되니 조금 가르쳐요. 얘네 조직이 한테 있어서 랑라 다치 호 가르쳐 그냥 된다. 저말아 가베 여자. 내가 아잘 맞겠어. 얘네 얘가 되는 거 희생 도와줘야 너무 많아서 내가 나나 얘네 믹서도 인계다. 얘네 내서 탐지라 얘네 그가 제공했어.
Member data like Gopa.
그봐 인계다 야 내가 제공했어.
Georgia Tisha says, I found this commentary in English. I thought I'd be able to have the quotes perfect, but I can't find this quote. Whenever an attitude of superiority appears, at that time pride should be humble. It's Joe J talking about whatever it is that you have, whatever prosperity that you have, abundance that you have, to guard against giving rise to pride and to focus on those that are less than you, that are lacking, and give rise to compassion for them and to humble yourself, to be humble.
얘네 나중에 부산을 시험을 준비했어. 얘네 랑도 줄라 맞을 요나스. 얘네 이런데 때 필요만 필요했어. 그러나 되는 거랑 저거 얘네 맞을 때 요나스는 되다고 그랬어. 잘 파고라. 얘는 원래 된 원래 이런데 자기 출렁을 못 살이 것도 내가 말했어. 양나 잠들고 파고를 했어. 잠들고 파고한테 한 번에 출렁을 내가 얘는 또 딱을 뜨니 뭐 나는 가서 딱하고 까먹게 되거나 뭐 살이. 그때 말한 소리 연대 제 연이나요. 맞으리나? 말한 소리 봐. 근데 콜라 되는 집 아니 연대게 되는 집 가서 고갑이 말했어.
Likewise, in words of my perfect teacher, it says that for one that has pride in their mind, there is no method for giving rise to the enlightened qualities for them. There is no way that enlightened qualities can arise in their mind. For the individual that has pride, they're like an iron pot turned upside down. It can never be filled with any liquid substance. You pour as much as you want, it will never go in. Or like a rock, a stone at the bottom of an ocean, in the ocean, where the center of the stone will stay dry no matter how long it exists, remains within the ocean. Meaning that even if the conditions are available for giving rise to certain qualities, as long as there is pride, there is no opportunity for those qualities to take root, to be born.
this one comes any da 가르쳐봐. 얘네 기본 다 원하다 탑시드 가르쳐서나 가래 여장스러워. 얘가 몸선배 봐. 얘는 근데 주마다 없이 봐. 여장 되는 게 뭐예요, 말이야. 산이 가르쳐 시그마를 했을 때가 몸선배지. 맞아. 야 매장 내가 때는 말하는 쪽 선제매와 너는 땅 가서 가르쳐고 근데 가르쳐줘요. 근데 땅 가라는 쪽 빼는 동나 녹투바 찌나 찌투바 지도 가려나 비나는 많은 거란 뭐 되게 토나 아고 네 토바지야 내가 딴 거랑 좀 가서 남체 토바했어.
So the method for this, so a method to apply, is to not give rise to covetousness, a longing, a covetousness for getting more, for gaining, to recognize that whatever it is that you do have is in nature like an illusion, is illusory, temporary, can be lost at any time. Whatever will happen tomorrow will happen. Whatever I have today is fine. To perceive it as being like an illusion and to not have a mind of covetousness, longing for more, and to also keep yourself away from pride, a sense of arrogance with whatever it is you have. Likewise, if you're lacking, if you don't have prosperity, wealth, then to perceive it in a similar way, to avoid a mind of covetousness and to perceive all situations as being illusory-like in nature. In this way, thinking, whatever situation befalls me, whatever may happen today, whatever happens tomorrow, be it a difficult situation, a happy situation, I'll meet with that. Whatever befalls me, I'll meet with it. Let it happen. Whatever may come tomorrow, come what may, sort of thing. Then in that way, you're becoming able to take whatever given situation as the path.
네, 양 그래서 대시 부도가 대시 부도가 되지. 아니, 와서 빼나 봉체 쥐탐발에 다서 냠는 조제. 제좀 말하나. 정말 쥐탐발에 좀 가라 파마도 말하나. 심바 진료 말했어. 지켜나. 알아야 되는 거는 저 애니 성품좀 말. 와. 뭐든 좋고네. 아, 그냥 거를 쳐봐야지 밥소는 쳐봐지 보고 말해. 너는 가래 좋은 애야. 택도바지 봤어. 봐. 좋은 애야. 좋아. 나도 주가 저번에 가래라고 해서 초시에서 나오나. 초시. 초시에 연애 딱을 주고 인사. 초시에 맨날 가서 연애에 짱보나. 그래서 그 생각해요 말이야. 초시에는 가서 여자 생각 엄마 동양. 초시에 연애 가둬야 죽어요. 봐. 저번에 초시에서 그러더라. 초시에 연애 아니 박별식스. 아,
박별이.
그래. 초시에 연애 때문에 박별식 맞다. 하고. 대대 좀 초시가지. 초시가
Geshe Potoa says, even if you wander through 10 villages on alms, in your alms realm, and receive absolutely nothing, not a single morsel of food, do not be discouraged. Referring to monks going about on their alms rounds, getting absolutely nothing. Even if you get nothing, you're not to be discouraged. In part because you still need to continue on, go on further. Though you may have circled the town 10 times and still have not received any alms, do not be discouraged. And then likewise, though reverence may fall on you like rain, do not become happy and attached. So whatever reverence or whatever prosperity falls upon you, to not give rise to attachment to that at all. So in brief, the main point is to be content with whatever situation befalls you, to be ready to meet with whatever happens to you. The primary thing to have is contentment. Really, the primary definition for being wealthy, for being rich, is having contentment. For the individual that is content with whatever they meet with, whatever situation, then in every given situation, that person is wealthy. They're rich. Likewise, for the individual that is lacking contentment, however much they have will never be enough. They can be extremely rich, but as long as they're lacking contentment, they aren't truly rich. So it's said that so the primary thing here really is having contentment. Contentment and the willingness to meet with whatever situation comes up to you. For the individual with contentment, they are classified in the caste of noble beings, the Aryas. So yes, the main thing here, the main point, crucial thing, is having contentment with whatever it is that you do have.
네, 뭐만 다 천대로 저기 아마 제거래. 어쨌든 두 가지 생각을 못했어.
생각.
근데 코로나야 나 여기 산산 타고 이렇게 죽어요라. 아빠 퍼졌더니 벌써 말을 다 했지대로 배들이 다 막 배들이지. 근데 그걸 배가 안 된다고 했더니 그냥 뭐 어떤지 좀 망고요래. 근데 보다
그거는 망고.
요래. 아 됐다. 근데 그런 게 지금 호마든지 다 지금 예수가 지킨다더니 뭐 그런 거 사진 가서 소도 그런 것들이 진다해서 나부도 다 지난 백간에도 다 다른 거라야 바꿔로 맞아 정말 에샤츠 드 아니 저 가지치 우리 아니 그런 시에 줬어 그런 왔다 나는 거리 보고요 말했어 나는 거리 빼만 보여 그래? 와 거리 찌거나 와 야사 말아 똥개 많이 거리 똥개 똥개는 강바고 그래 나 리그는 거리 커투 말했어 양 야사 미마고 그거 와 다다 들어와도 와 대요기 해자마가 나는 거리 쳐 헐도 그랬어 나까지 땅에 따고 아 강바 공연 왔어 아 가려면 나는 강바 가발로는 아 강바했어 아 강바 들에 발로는 아 강바 했더니 아 강바 요랬어 아 가려면 나 강바 먹어야 말았어 아니 아까지 뺏겼으니 아니 말이 추워지요 말았어 왜 예다도 있는 다지 잘라요 팔이 요 천에 소 소져 버렸어 아 그거 나 가와서 가라 싸줘줘 요랬어 파는 나 쳐서서 용거 옛날에는 까다 전에 가라고 이니 말이 추워요 말했어 나는 거리 망와요 아들서 제가 나 거리 찌잖아 공면서 거리 찌거든 나 빼기오라 차도 그랬어 제가 나 빼거리 망와요 그랬어 나 빼는 몇십 번에 가서 아니 그랬어 나 추워랬어 나는 가서 가는 거는 나는 그니 요거만 보여 나는 거리만 보여 나는 가르거든 나는 이놈 뺏기 가야 제마도 가야고 제가서 선비자리 말이야 제가서 배가도 내 마음 같은 나 까니땅에 가래서 나 거기도 가서는데 네 거기 땅에 때라 양 가서 라샤게 양한테 대사 가고 근데 나 빼까지 진짜 방사를 정말한테 고마웠어
Tulku Sang-ngag Rinpoche had one disciple, Tulku Sang-ngag master, Rinpoche. He lived high up in the mountains. border regions with Tibet. And he had many disciples, for many anis and nuns under his care, disciples, and also many sponsors. Some quite wealthy sponsors. One time he told us, he was with us, he told us that his patrons had come to him and said, Rinpoche, it's so difficult for you. You're always traveling back and forth. You have all this stuff to do. We've kind of had this meeting, and we're going to pool together some funds and buy you a car to alleviate your difficulties. Sang-ngag Rinpoche said, absolutely not. I definitely do not need or want a car. In fact, I have many, many cars. If you were to buy me one car, it'd do nothing but bring me difficulties. You have to find some place to keep the car, store the car. You have to hire a driver. I have to find money to pay the driver. I'd have to put the driver up somewhere. He needs a place to stay too. Sometimes we'll go high up in the mountains. You can't drive up there. Then we'll have to do something with the car. All kinds of problems. If you get me one car, it'll bring me nothing but problems, all these difficulties. Right now, I have countless cars. Everywhere I go, people pick me up, whatever car I'm in, that's my car. Really, there's nobody richer than me. I kind of think I'm the richest guy around. I have all these cars, I have all these friends, everywhere I go, wherever I show up, people feed me.
All the taxis.
All
the taxis.
Taxes?
Taxi.
Yeah, taxis. Taxis pick me up, people pick me up, there's cars ready for me anywhere I go. Don't buy me a car, don't buy me a house. If I have a house, I'd have to take care of that. Wherever I go, wherever I stay, there's places ready for me to stay. Those are my home. All you poor other people, you buy one car, you buy one house, you take care of it, you have all these problems, I feel so bad for you. Me, I'm wealthy. I have no worries at all. Yeah, on and on like that. I have lots of cars, lots of houses, lots of food. Everything I could need, I have. So please, don't buy me a car. He goes on, keeps going on to say. I have servants, many attendants. Everywhere I go, people help me out. I really need for nothing. So please, patrons, don't worry about me at all. I'm just fine. I don't need anything.
Yeah. 양 그런 게 안에 들어가서 그런 게 첨지시야 첨지 되네 아 그것도 정말 그것도 튼대거든 저 튼튼데 삼을 되는 거네 네 이게 나야만 정말 사건 주로 근데 그 첨지가 저랑도 축구하자는 맞게 봤어 아 저랑도 축구하지 않나 되는 가서 담수 투그랬어 아니 대대 아니 대대더니 난 너무 갔어 그 백이 있어 딱 거기서 정말 공을 따는 거라 정말 공을 때는 내리거라 나 강관하나 야나 나는 그거지 마도 매놨어
공개 강관나
야나 그런 그거지 마도 매스 대내 콜을 놓나 대대 제도 없나 뭐지 마해로 대대 제도 차를 갔어 난 너 초조를 갔어 꼭 강과 중종지 말입니다. 강치기요. 강과 중종지 나나. 그 잘라서만 너는 코는 하나 코트가. 나한테 코는 이만 찍었더니 제가 좀 축구할게. 나는 근데 제가 너무 인스. 뭐? 근데 제가 또 그다. 저가 찍으랬어. 아니 나딱 되버렸어. 뭐 초조랬어. 근데 미 정화직 이제는 참 저거 때에서 똑같이 효과가 했어. 좀 맞지했어. 딱 듣기는 맞지. 뭐 배를 했어. 그래서 그걸 내가고도. 근데 난뭐 조조히 했어. 그렇게 맞으면 했어. 됐다. 근데 정말 내가 때에서 해가 열었어. 아, 공 벌써는 그냥 맞죠. 애사요 말했어. 그런 거 해야죠. 뭔가 참 느끼는 거 했어. 대단히 거죠. 참저는 때에서 누구라 통화사를 이나요. 침보 통고 말했다. 때에서 누구라 경우 참이 그래서 걔네 진행을 했어.
Sang-ngag Rinpoche had one very strict rule for his monks and nuns. So for the most part, his monks and nuns were in retreat all the time, maintaining their practice sessions, accumulating mantra and so forth. They were in retreat together a lot. So his one strict rule was, you're not allowed to fight at all, have any conflict between each other. There can be no fighting. If there's conflict between each other, the Dharma companions, then the sacred commitments, the samayas, are degenerated, broken. So this was his one adamant, strict rule. He would say, if there's any fighting, then I'm out of here. I'm leaving. And for him, he had a small little hut that he lived in, and really extremely few possessions in his hut. Everything he had in there, he carried by himself on his back. So basically, he was ready to go at a moment's notice. So this was known by everybody there. If you fight, your teacher will be leaving. And they all depended on him. He was their master. They needed him there. He'll leave, and there will be a great regret among you. And it worked. Well, Sang-ngag Rinpoche told Rinpoche about this too, personally. But maybe sometimes there were small little conflicts that would come up, but then somebody would always say, hey, you better calm down, Rinpoche's going to leave us. And so there were really never any big problems that came about. Large part because of that, because it's one strict rule.
네? 근데 권한 게 아니 어래 근데 다 권한 게 생각은 망치로 다 안에 든데 이거래 이는 망치로 개복개모래 개복개모 장장래 다 거기서 설레비하고 딱 보도 여기 사삼을 보아 개복개모래 근데 전대마다 딱 봐도 개복개모 하는 미기병업에 살아오는 거였어요. 개복개모 장장한테 노래를 막 싫어도 근데 전대로 우리 별가고 딱 봐도는 양 되는 백티서 개복개모 대비 최소교야 많이 넣고 근데 전대로 양쪽 개복개모 돼서 강과층 가세에 들사이 전대로 이제 무슨 공식 광고도 양내 개복개모 대비 힘사서 전대로 머리 좀 그거 양쪽 개복개모 돼서 강강한 축배 정보를 줬어 개복개모 너무 살아 근데 고속가 히도라 근데 양 돼서 아주 가세 커였어 막
Mingers are cool.
네, 연구는 대시 개념이 크구나. 같이 배가 됐을 때 같이 보는 거. 다양한 여부 뭐 같이 커였어.
Look, like how many donations, core, how much donations from
How many donations and how many collections you made from this year?
So, Sang-ngag Rinpoche also. So we had probably 400 or 500 disciples, mostly monks and nuns that stayed with him up in where he was up in the border regions with Tibet. And most of them were quite elderly. Most of his disciples were quite elderly. They had escaped from Tibet and come and stayed with him. But because most of them were quite elderly, they were always dying. And so he would show up to Dilgo Khyentse, Sechin, show up to Dilgo Khyentse with the latest round of the names of his deceased disciples, along with their donations or offerings to Khyentse Rinpoche. So it became this joke that Sang-ngag Rinpoche would show up, and Khyentse Rinpoche would say, how many donations from the elderly do you have for me today? And how many names of the elderly have you brought for me today? The old deceased.
다 생각을 뭐 축구 하고서 왔어. 그런 축구 치아지고 왔어. 그래서 하고서 왔어. 그런 의미 축구 그런 자 가지고 생각한 건 그런 콜도 해주는 거다. 어떻게 생각하고 나한테
One backpack.
백백 뭐다. 그런 코치 해야지 뭐다. 그런 거다. 근데 거참 가서 나 때마다 야만 난 이마지는 돈은 나 커야지 뭐 메다 소도아 어떻게 문이 있어서 때려봐 얘네요 코로나스게 내말에 말이 죽고 치워 요 말했어 우리 고백제서 그런 초시에 제보요 야 그런 가와까지 그 가와를 패서다 그게 really 말 공부하는 연구를 봐도 조사만 하든 말에서는 뭐 배우는 기분에 대해서 가서 텍스트 라고는 다 기타를 라고는 다 야라 콜고는 다 조금 뭐 재해요 그런 찍기는 대가래 그런 초보야래 그런 샘 초보래 근데 그런 가와이는데 그런 무슨 해야 돼? 그런 샘을 찍기는 되래 이거 여러 번 말에 초보지 사실은 너무 너 찍기도 그런 틀다 만 도나 만 지나서 야고 많이 만 도메다 만 가. 나는 커트했지 뭐도 너아 대도 나 커니 만 도나 어다고 들으래 그샘 주보래 그 잘하게 될 때마다 영영만 다 니네도 깨더니 내 고야도 될 거고 나도 좀 하고 그랬어
Kensei Rinpoche would say, how rich are you getting the donations from all these elderly dying? You're amassing all this wealth. You're so rich now, but really in actuality, all he owned, all he had was that what he could carry in one little backpack. That was all of his worldly possessions fit in one backpack that he was ready to take anywhere. And really, when I think about it, I think what he would say was true. Maybe was the richest person around. Can't say he'd say that, and I think it was probably true. He had that level of contentment in his mind. He was truly content. Content and had nothing to worry about. Others have, going somewhere, they have to arrange all sorts of stuff. They need attendants, taxis, cars, all sorts of stuff to put together. But for him, with his one single bag, he truly was rich. Everything was ready for him wherever he went. In his mind, he was truly rich. So, yeah, when he would say that, it's absolutely true. He was truly wealthy with his limited, what he had. He could carry everything, ready to go, everything in one bag on his back, and he had stable, true contentment in his mind. And it was funny, this is one rule that he probably could have kept. He has one bag. You guys break this rule, I'm out of here. He was ready to go. So really the meaning behind this story and the meaning for that you all need to understand is this idea of contentment, having contentment. That's truly what brings wealth.
That's ni that is Japanese. That the song that the chick the song and to the aqua lam sharing as the second aqua that picture tango catching for what. This one the song at the looking at that Kazan, Levitic mother here, and Levitic mother here. I said, sometimes around to the chick Chuba Yananda, Chuba Minayanda, so Yananda, did that one the chick around to the pen any. Ada penata joma gua second round chapa tama second round so ngara to misigi ne da na ngara to unity kade ya boya se 동네 제 boya se ke chi shu ji cha de yo de sa mo de se de ne to ya na ne ti sha pu cha yo na
So we're talking about taking various situations onto the path. So taking prosperity, decline, loss, various different situations onto the path. To take this as a spiritual practice, lung care, taking situations on the path, is crucial for the entirety of your life. Your whole lifetime, this is required, necessary. So because of that, we're kind of teaching this slowly, relaxed. Our last teaching, we only went through one single verse, and tonight, likewise, we covered just one verse again. Really, there's no hurry, because this topic really is quite important. They're important for Dharma practitioners and likewise for non-Dharmic practitioners. These are situations that you meet with throughout your whole life, whoever you may be. Talking about dealing or how to deal with prosperity and gain, how to deal with decline and loss, negative circumstances. And coming up, how to deal with desire, objects of desire, and how to deal with anger and the objects of aversion. All of these are crucially important topics of knowing how to carry such situations onto the path. So please keep that in mind. So we'll stop there for now, and if there are any questions.
Yeah.
Can I ask relating to last verse? The
previous.
Is it okay to ask
좀 기회가 되라. 제가 되는 되게.
Yeah.
when someone has problems practicing Tonglen because they're afraid of and feeling overwhelmed by taking on suffering and pain, what advice would you give?
So for the listeners, 좀 기회가 되게 꼴라요. Kazan. So the question is relating to the last verse regarding taking decline or loss on the path. So in particular with the practice of Tonglen, sending and receiving, that when someone's in a situation of loss or decline, situation of suffering, how to take on the loss, suffering of others when you have the fear of it overwhelming you.
Yeah, and what advice would you give to someone who has that fear of like, I'm already, like, how can I take on more? I already feel so overwhelmed.
Tonglen, Nyaman, Chebikapa. Rangi Netsu, Kyogo Chatsar Yena, Dunga Nyongi Yena, Shemeki, Dunga, Tsur, Lenyaka, Nala Rangi, Kyogo Yosan, Shena, Ke, Sigiway, Dunga Dila Chewa, Yongdanga, Shigire, Sembire. Canvas checker. Image of large animals.
그래. 걔네 다 그래서 가렸어요. 맞아 좀 다 생계로. 얘네 다 나랑 좀 빼다 얘네 생계 되잖아. 얘네 나랑 속에 아니 미기 동화를 무슨 맞춰 소리 너무 제잖아요. 뒤에 맞춰도 그냥 아직 동화를 치도 봐야 되고. 진짜 연구 많아요. 봐. 아주 드리기 누가 요. 맞춰 처를 해줘야 가서 누가 하고 요. 얘네야 맞춰 그 빼나 생기에 그 더블 때니 맞춰 랑게들이 집안에서 빼나 아주 고요. 빼나 되는 거랑 저거 대화와 빼나 그다음 거랑 저거 산지 다리 연기 빼나다 뒷값 그래서 신간 램빅이 냐로나 신간 램빅 제지 신간 램빅 냐로나 그러고 가르쳐요 산지랑 고조 밑집 근데 고조 냐로 신간 그거는 정말 신탑
Yeah. Buddha was born as a chariot puller in a hell rim.
Oh, yeah.
이 값은 근데 다 코란다 조 까마로 봤으면 되다 산이 근데 다 콩이를 근데 신다도 손을 다 야와도 되는 거 양도 와 양도 다 니가 앞에 메시지를 안에 근데 종을 와 종들 그 값은 근데 다 산이 코라다 뭐마게 장축지 아니 뭐마게 다 사물 에서 근데 맞아 슈청고 여기 틀 때니 근데 그런 거 뭐한테 hinge 계속 뭐한테 hinge 제니 아 말하는 이자 그 헐래요 꽤 무슨 동안 양도 봐 얘네죠 아 그런 내보다니 근데 말하는 게 다 아주 지나 근데 사람은 코 내봐도 돼 코그 동화된 말하는 소리야 좀 이해서 독산 이해네 아니 가르쳐서 냐면 소마라 아니 코 따로 제스 코기 까와도 나는 내게 인스 내게 때문에 다시 딱 타고 네가 나는 걸 깨어지 네가 내 측이 인스 얘네 냐빌랭가 간다스가 소속을 내봐라 뭐 수수라더니 깨두고 요랬어 얘네 가르쳐야 거라 그래 냐빌 코빼 콩솔라니 그걸 토하지 쉬니 근데 가르쳐 거 사지기 냐고 다 코가서 뒤가서 가르쳐 가르쳐 제기 타고 되는데 코맨 가래
제
그럼 맨 가래
단단한 무슨 말
까마를 것도 못 봐요 아까 제기 신단데 봐 다시 강한들 코를 네 탐지 디센게 제기고 그투 생계 되게 투나 코 인연이 네 탐지 되는 존에 생계 되투데 코 남산 끼와 투르서 이나야 그 로바데 그 간세 그 간세 따지 얘네 코를 쳐 따지니 눈에 제나 코 봤다 코 이제 니가 된 말한 거 코를 싸마대 이거를 때 이나야 왜다 코 밑에 나 걸타고 면도 이나야 나랑 그 되게 틀 때는 나랑 들어봤던 게 다서 된다고 다다 나랑 속이야 코 동화한테 내가 내게 인사나 맞아 뭐니 그 동화한테 내가 좀 말했어 이나야 되게 틀 때는 삼사를 딱 빼는 거 같아 쌈바상으로 틀 때는 꼴 패다 그래 얘들이 날 때에서 나랑 들어봤다 하더라고요 이나야 당연히 나랑 좀 살려고 푹 서나 그래 맞아 이말 이제 렌트가 이거래 다다 와서 때도 렌트가 이거 말해 이 망고도 sempre 제거도 아니 저랑 이렇게 되는데 말을 또 마음으로 하는 건데 저랑 렌트가 이거 말해 이니 sempre 보고 말했어
Primary thing for us in practice is having the motivation of bodhicitta. Training in bodhicitta, giving rise to bodhicitta. So training in Tonglen based on bodhicitta, thinking that I'm really going to take on the suffering of others. I focus on the suffering of others and I'm really going to bring it on to myself and then my own suffering will increase based on that. I'll actually take it on. You don't have to worry about that. We don't yet have the capacity to do that. You don't have the power to actually take the suffering out of somebody, bring it onto yourself. Really, the point here is the power of one's bodhicitta, the intention of the precious mind and enlightenment. That it's based on the bodhicitta and the training in bodhicitta, having the mindset of I visually, or I wish to take on the suffering of others. That is based on that one's own negativities, obscurations are cleansed, purified. Like the story of the Buddha pulling the chariot in hell before becoming Buddha, when he first gave rise to bodhicitta. He was in a hell realm where he and his companion were both strapped to a chariot that they were having to pull, a chariot or plow, something, pulling something with the denizen of hell, you know, whipping them, making them go on, and it was tremendously excruciatingly painful for them. So the Buddha at that time, because he had somewhere in his mind the power of the habitual imprint of bodhicitta, gave rise to a moment of compassion for his companion, recognizing that they're both in this awful situation together, experiencing this extraordinary suffering together. gave rise to the intention of and the thought that I will take his burden upon myself. I'll take his harness or his yoke, carry his burden by myself, and no need for both of us to suffer like this. Having this moment of compassion like that, thinking then that will bring this relief to my companion here, named Karma-rupa. So he has this thought, and then he looks to the denizen of hell and shares his plan, says, please take the yoke off of my companion and put it on me, I'll carry his load. Let him go. And so all based on this thought of bodhicitta. He gave rise to this first moment of bodhicitta, of giving away any sense of happiness and taking on the suffering of another. So then the hell being said, said to him, how could that ever happen? Who is it that could take on the suffering of others? Whatever your individual karma is, that is what you're to experience. Nobody can experience your individual karma for you. And so saying this, yelling this to the Buddha, then he was extremely angry that the Buddha would even have the nerve to say this. So he says this to him and then hits him in the head with a club, hits the Buddha in the head with a club, and the Buddha loses consciousness, and in that moment, through the power of his giving rise to bodhicitta for that single instant, all the karma that he had amassed, all the actions he had amassed that connected him to hell, to the experience of hell, was completely exhausted, and he was reborn out of the hell realms forever. And born in that heavenly realm of the 33. So, point being, the Buddha's plan at the time was to physically actually take on the suffering, the karmic suffering of his companion, Karma-rupa. But he was not able to do that. That was an impossibility. The karma for that to happen wasn't there. So that didn't happen, and the companion did remain in hell, suffering. So to be able to do that, then you have to be, once you've arrived at the bhumis, the bodhisattva bhumis, then it becomes possible to actually take on the suffering of other beings. But until you arrive at that state, it's an impossibility. You cannot actually directly take out the suffering of other sentient beings. By having such a mindset, then yes, there are methods and means that can be beneficial. You can help other beings, but you're not directly taking on their suffering in this situation. So in brief, there's no need to worry about that happening. And this worry, Rinpoche's heard this a lot. This comes up a lot. So there's no need for it. Once you're a bodhisattva, then maybe you can think about that. But for us right now, there's no need to worry about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Then I to meet someone never yet. Yes, someone never yet. Met the shit at your mother, who she was showing. Meet the shit mares. You call it.
Another example. Maybe you have a very bad intention, bad motivation mindset. If that guy died, it'd be so wonderful. If only they would die. You have a strong intention to bring about the death of someone else. Just having that intention, it's not going to bring about your death. So, similar.
이나야, 나라 풍속이 격 풍속을 한 거요네. 샘지 거는 마다비 톤이 샘지. 내가 봐. 내 처음부터 싸고요. 이런데 코가 가야 두 말에. 이 말하라 좀 가르쳐 버리세요. 말하는 니까비야 해당되게. 말하는 게 대화 좀 더. 대화 매 타도 내가 싸주고요. 이나요? 콩에 드라데 콩 시원쇼 싸바기 콩 시기야 말에 콩 나바 가이티도 말에 나바데 말하는 거 jungo요. 그랬어. 가데 드라데나 아니 와서 내 해당돼 말이 인계를 제가 대화 되는 거 하나 쌓아보고 이거네. 배드기서 대화 되는 거 하나 더
So in that situation, really doing nothing but increasing the anger in your own mind stream. It's just a cause for facilitating the anger in your own mind stream. Doesn't affect them at all whatsoever. It's not going to kill them. It's not going to harm them. Just thinking in this way has no impact on them. But for you, it is amassing a tremendous amount of negative karma. It's a terrible, negatively harmful thing that you're doing to yourself. In the temporary level, right now, in the immediate situation, having anger towards such an enemy, towards someone, thinking ill for someone else, then it destroys any semblance of well-being or happiness in your own mind stream, and creates the causes for taking birth in the lower realms in the ultimate sense in the future. And doesn't harm them, won't kill them, won't do anything for them. Really, it's just a condition that leads to harming oneself. So again, just as a reminder, towards our enemies, we're to always train in having compassion, to avoid anger at all costs, to never have anger towards enemies. Anger towards enemies will only ever harm us. Train in having compassion towards them. Then we're amassing virtue, and also you attain your own state of well-being and happiness for oneself.
나서 왜니 잠깐만 왜니 근데 나한테
Namgon.
이제 넘버를 그래서 사지 나와 타이 근데 다 두체에 근데 제가 좀 뭐냐 뭐 자. 근데 저 내가 당가라 저 냠내서 롭중제로 나왔어. 롭중제나 알아서 땡나 봐 주고요. 롭중 맞에는 되는 얘들이 봐줘서 내가 저때는 막 보고 말해. 내가 좀 되는 해줘 되는 봐봐도 이렇게 되는 천에 되는 봐다. 디나가 싸움 담아이나 되는 나랑 저기 주대. 나서도 다 가운데 되나. 저당이 거래. 내가 좀 같이 한번 해 봐.
All of you today, a reminder today is the new moon and also the holiday, a particular auspicious occasion of the Buddha Amitabha. To make aspiration prayers in connection to that. And also please train in these teachings. Well, take these teachings to heart, practice these teachings. It's only by practicing them, engaging with them, that they'll really enter into your mind, enter into your heart. If you don't engage them, if you just listen to them and leave them at that, then they won't have any transformative effect on your mind. If these teachings simply go in one ear and out the other, then there's no real benefit, no real effect that they can have. If they go in one ear and turn downwards into your heart, and are held in your heart, held in your mind, then they will transform your mind stream. Then they can do their work and change you. So please practice well in that way. And now we'll engage in the dedication and aspiration prayers together.
Sonam
Deya nam je sepa nye omna nye ve bana bam je je jenga na je bala topa ye sepe zole topa topa sho jambo mo chedra jemba da kundo zambo deya de jinda da kun ye je so ta no je wa ta jero to mo ta zon shebe yawa ta je yo mo na da to je je zo de kun jo sambo je jero do mo je kan Shabazade Bada Yuraje, Omsote, Gawajoyan Yisha, Yumen, Yanseran, Bakujan, Jero, Sanga, Kuze, Taten,
Shu Lama Kugam Sawa Sawa De Judo Loja Chilla Doji Gibra Sawa De Lama Dandewa Membra Zamling Chitan Yobam De Tato Nemo Sanzo Dunga Menen De Chede Sana Bari Dadu Trashi De Le Fonso. At this very moment, may the people and nations of this not even
Last one.